What are you going to do, brother? What you going to do when the Trumpomaniacs, the Hulkamaniacs, and the Cupomaniacs run wild on you?
Dude, was that not epic or what?
It was the best.
That's funny.
It was the absolute best.
How much did that outfit cost you?
Like $10.
I can't believe he's actually got a Trump shirt. Did you send it to him, Luke, or what?
He got the one. Well, it's close to the one.
No. So this is all iron-on shit. Nicole went to basically like the dollar store. She got like just a red T-shirt, and these are just iron-on letters.
Iron-on letters.
So you didn't like send money to the campaign to help out the cause or anything?
Not yet, but I'm buying a legit one.
Nice. I like it. Worth every penny. No, it's nice. It's pretty cool. That was funny. That caught me off guard.
I know, you're all like, your camera's fucked up.
Well, it was.
I'm like, I know, I got my camera turned off for a minute, Dick.
Well, it doesn't.
Wow. Well, I guess we're not censoring this one, huh?
Oh, you're already recording.
You want to try again? You could do your little intro. Let's do that.
Yeah, Roger can edit that out, I'm sure.
Edit what? Oh, no. Let's start over again.
Oh Lord.
Well, then it's not. We don't have the same like. We've seen them now.
Yeah,
still be funny.
You gotta have the same.
Can't do that.
You're gonna have the same reaction. Roger, just mute out the bad part. Sorry, everybody. Just in case Roger does it, edit that out. Sorry. So we got the.
Yeah, that's all right. We'll let your production team from the last 2 weeks. They can edit that stuff out. It's all good.
Oh, that's easy, man. I do the production thing's easy. You just upload stuff.
Yeah, you just upload it.
Oh.
So what did you guys think? What's the overall take on the RNC convention?
No, I think first, I think we should go back and just rehash everything we've talked about the last 2 episodes. Welcome back, Roger.
Thanks. No, we don't really. I was talking to my neighbor Steve today, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I want my survived, episode. What was it, 157? That was like 3.5 hours." I'm like, "What'd they do? Just leave their mics on and hit record and walk out of the room?" He's like, "No, dude, it was the whole." He said he sat there, he was done like the first half of his work, and he looked down and was like, "Man, I'm only halfway through the episode."
Well, I've gotten a mixed bag. I think Josh has too. In fact, today, somebody, I think on Facebook, Russell was talking smack. Roger's back, so I guess stay 90 minutes now. And then Darren's like, my attention span's just, my ADHD, it won't allow me to listen to 3.5 hours. And then some people said, man, I really liked it. Is that you guys' new format? We're like, nah, I'll probably meet in the middle somewhere. But with the debate, yeah, the debate, the convention. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Had, a while to think about it now. I liked, well, I don't even know where to start. I think they brought all the right people, from beginning to end. I was really impressed with some speeches. I thought the first 25, 30 minutes of Trump's speech was really good. And then he went off teleprompter a few times, as he does. But I mean, we can dissect it and everything. Josh, which one was your favorite, overall?
Well, so obviously, really like Hulk Hogan.
Yeah,
but I thought Dana White. Was probably, he was spot on.
Was he on teleprompter? It did not seem like he was on teleprompter.
No, he was not on teleprompter. He was freestyling.
That's risky.
Oh, yeah, especially with Dana White.
Yeah, man, I'd have to agree with you there, man. Roger, we were saying that we were all messaging back and forth and stuff, and when Hulk Hogan comes out there, it wasn't a surprise. I knew earlier in the day he was going to come out, and he came out, and I liked how he played it, where he came out like Hulk Hogan, brought it back to Terry Bollea, the real man, and then brought it back to Hulk Hogan. I thought that was really good. And for me personally, and maybe they weren't going for this, but for me, Hulk Hogan brings back the 1980s more than anything else, with Rocky III and then making the run and slamming the giant. And, the 80s, I think almost everyone would agree that's, for everyone alive right now, is probably the best decade they ever lived through, just overall. So it kind of, I thought it was really good. And then Kid Rock comes out there, changes the lyrics up to American Badass a little bit. But
Yeah.
but man, when they did the one part, you can roll with rock or you can, you know what, you remember
Yeah.
Yeah.
where they did the little bong. I was like, yes. And I wonder how many people in the audience went ahead and said that line. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. Last night I got a lot of people blowing up my text. Man, I'm stoked. Kurt was watching. He's like, man, I'm pumped up.
It was good, and you're right on the Hulk Hogan thing. Like, for the 15 minutes that he was talking, I was 10, 12 years old, sitting on my couch in my living room watching him, do the leg drop on Nikita Koloff, in the Iron Shake. It really, yeah, it did. It took me back to the 80s, which obviously is the best part of my life, decades wise, as far as growing up, Americana. Uh, it was, yeah, man, it was really, really good. And I think from the beginning of the convention, I think it was spot on. I think everybody they brought up, I think it was spot on. Even Kid Rock, it was when he first started, I was like, "Ooh, man, I don't know how this is going to go over," because there were some people in that room that were not ready for Kid Rock. There, and you see
Most
him,
of them.
yeah, you see them, and they're like trying to dance a little bit, and they're like, "I don't know what I'm doing because I'm 60 years old and I'm white, and I haven't been around this type of music really." It was it was pretty obvious.
No, I think we were talking about it earlier. Like everybody talks about the '84 convention, and I was too young for that. You guys were probably too young, I'm assuming. I don't know, Luke, you're a couple of years old. I don't know if you remember the '84 convention. I don't. But like, I mean, conventions are normally boring, man. Like, I can't tell you that I watched any other convention more than I watched this one. Just and Luke, you hit it up early on. I mean, just the speakers, the lineup of the speakers, how they had them ordered. And then when you come to day 4, dude, they were fired up, man. It was good. I was actually looking forward to it. And it's kind of crazy because I didn't really talk about it a whole lot in the house. But even my wife, she's like, hey, she's got to flip to Fox News. She's like, Hulk Hogan's getting ready to come on. And she had flipped on like an hour earlier or something like that. And so, it's like there was a lot of genuine interest and buzz. But you know what the other thing is, and I don't know if you guys have noticed this on X or not, with ever since the Biden debate and his whole downward spiral, what they did, I think in short, is they made it cool to be a Republican. When you look at the folks they brought on there, the high energy, when you look at X and all these athletes that are coming out endorsing Donald Trump, they have made it cool to vote for Trump. They've made it cool to be a Republican. And I kind of like that because I think that does resonate to your younger voter. And I don't know if that's tied in hand with Vance, being a younger guy. And I don't know if that's what they were, their overall theme that they were trying to go for. But it's like, man, like, especially when you get on X and you talk about a lot of these younger athletes that are coming out, it's like, man, they are making it cool to be a Republican again. And I think when you look at the convention, again, the convention is not for guys like us, and probably most of our listeners that are already going to vote that way. It's not for us, right? It's there to fire up their base, their delegates, but it's also a lot of primetime television. And it's where you're really reaching out and you get that 15, 20 minutes to talk to those independent voters. And I tell you what, man, the DNC is going to have to step it up because there is no way that you can follow one. How epic was it to have Tucker Carlson on there, right? Which unscripted as well. No teleprompter. I mean, the guy, man, gift of gab. But you have him on there. You got the Hulkster on there. You got Dana White, and then you bring out Trump. I mean, I tell you what, man, the DNC is going to have to bring it because you cannot follow that show up with Sleepy Joe rambling on for 7 or 8 minutes. You just can't do it, man.
I tell you, with the audience, I mean, I guess I don't know how that works, how to get into the convention. I mean, I know donors are there. I know that. And then people from each state's there, and there's obviously delegates and stuff, but could we not get like some better looking people on the floor? I mean, it's just the goofiest looking people, a lot of old folks, I'm sure it'll be the same at the DNC, but man, come on, can't we invest and just like get some like decent looking people? Like you said, it's like nobody knew what to do when Kid Rock was there. you know, and oh, Melania Trump. Yeah. She had never heard that song before. I promise you that. Just the look on her face. She was like,
Did you see her sitting there staring? I mean,
Yeah.
she like no emotion, deadpan. She was just like
Like,
it was like,
And what
ooh,
about the look on Donald's face when she comes out on the stage with him at the end? I mean,
yeah.
I think that was like genuine surprise. It's like, oh, out of all, after everything that's happened, it's like, wow, that was a genuine surprise look, I think.
yeah. I think, yeah, it was, she is beautiful though. You got to give her that, man. Wow. Crazy. But, yeah, it was, that was a lot of, you know, Kimberly Guilfoyle. It's nice to see her and Don Jr. not on cocaine like they were, in the 2020 convention. That was awful. I mean, it was bad. Y'all remember that? You remember in 2020 when,
That
oh
dude was
my
high as a
Yeah.
kite and like sweating. And it's like, oh man, lay off the
Man.
coke, dude. Come on.
That was a crazy time. But yeah, I was just not enough good things to say. I just wonder, you know, I was all hyped when I was watching it, but when I was thinking about it today, you know, and of course, you know, people are coming out on social media, the talking heads. It's like, you know, we've devolved into, you know, idiocracy because you got Hulk Hogan up there, you know, and that's just cheesy and it's ridiculous.
Whatever, man.
Well, here's the thing: if they got The Rock to come to the DNC, and that might very well
Oh,
be
yeah,
their
they'd
answer.
love
They'd
it.
be like, oh, you see, The Rock is here. I mean, I hope they do that. So it's like, see, you guys are freaking hypocrites. Cool is cool. The Rock is cool, kind of. Hulk Hogan's cool. The Rock's not in any league as Hulk Hogan, but like Ryan was saying, or somebody was saying, I think it was Ryan. It's like, man, if you could get Stone Cold up there, you know, oh man,
Could you imagine the break of the glass, dude?
Yeah, and I was kind of hoping that. Sorry, Josh, I cut you off, but I was kind of hoping that Trump would walk out to American Badass because Lee Greenwood's getting up there in years. Still a great song,
Oh, isn't he?
but
Isn't he?
eesh.
So he's 81 years old.
Wow.
I mean, he's still
Same age as Biden, right? He looks a lot better than he does.
yeah. Well, I mean, Lee Greenwood talked for how long is that song? 3 minutes. Like I mean, he was able to do that. Biden couldn't do that. Not for 3 minutes. I'm ready for Lee Greenwood to retire that song. Honestly, like it's. I wish Trump would have walked out to American Badass. Like that would have been, dude. That would have been it, man. Kid Rock, you know, finish it up and you like, you know, have maybe some little bit of pyrotechnics in there, and then that wall comes up and you know, DJT standing there. I would have lost it.
Well, even at the end, right? The song that the
opera
singer
song?
was singing.
Yeah,
Dude, I'm telling you, man, there's some attention to detail in there.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Whoever put it together, again, like Luke was saying, you know, and even my wife said it, you know, and she is not a fan of politics by and large. She was like, whoever put this together was genius. It was an absolute genius. You know, they lot of flack day one for, you know, having Amber Rose in there. You know, and then Sean O'Brien from the Teamsters, which I thought the Teamsters thing was huge, massive. You know, they came out and they were like, well, he didn't endorse Trump. It's like, okay, one, that's the first time the Teamsters have ever spoken at RNC. And two, I think this is one of the first times the Teamsters are not endorsing anybody. That's massive.
Which not endorsing, especially for like the Teamsters, right? Because even Zuckerberg came out today and said that he's not endorsing anybody. That's an endorsement.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Make no mistake about it, right? Especially with the Teamsters. That's an endorsement.
Oh yeah. What I did not like seeing was all the hate that Amber Rose got. You know, you know, people gave a lot of flack because of, you know, her background and, you know, especially Matt Walsh. You know, it was like, well, she's got a face tattoo and an OnlyFans and stuff like that. And it's like, hey, look, I get it, right? You know, I'm not endorsing her as a person. I'm not saying people should emulate her or look up to her. But to have somebody with the following that she has, I mean, her Instagram account alone's got what, 20-something million people. All right. And her profile picture, when you go to her Instagram account, her profile picture is Trump. And, you know, for her to come out, it was very powerful to have her come out and say, look, check it out. This is what I was told in 2016. This is what I believed in 2016, because this is what I was told about this man. And I've come to realize it, you know, on my own, based on my own research and, you know, watching him, that none of that's true. Like that's she, are any of her followers going to automatically run for the poll and vote for Donald Trump? Probably not. Maybe. Who knows? But it didn't hurt him. It helped,
No, but you know what? It does change the whole vibe, because remember, it's the, like with the Walsh you're talking about. It's the old school Republican. Hey, this is the men's club. This is the old white men's club. You're not invited. You're not wanted. It's like, you know what? I hate to tell you this, but elections are decided by votes.
Yeah.
And I will take every vote I can get. And I think for somebody like that, like you're saying, for the people that she does influence, it's like, it goes back to, well, you know what? It's okay to do this. It's okay to understand that this sucks, and it's okay to change my vote, and it's okay for me to be a black person and not vote Democrat.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say on Amber Rose, then either one of y'all grab it, is, I kept going back to that line in that scene in Walk the Line, where, Joaquin Phoenix is in the room with the record executives, and he's telling them, like, I'm going to go play at Folsom Prison. And they're like, whoa, they're like, oh, your fans are church church folk, Johnny. They don't want to hear you singing to, murderers and rapists, and they're Christians. And he just looks at me, he's like, well, then they ain't Christians. Yeah. And so I just saw a lot of Christians that were, man, very, very judgy.
I had to throw out some Bible verses on X a few times this week, and, about the whore who washed Jesus's feet, the famous Jesus' famous saying, ye without sin cast the first stone. It's like, judge not lest ye be judged. It's like, you people are on really like thin ice in my book anyway. It's like, man, my whole stance on, I try not to judge other people in the way they live. That's not me. I will tolerate it, but I won't accept it, But I feel like I'm on very thin ice when I'm judging someone's everlasting soul. That's not my place, dude. When people, always say, and I'm getting beside the point, I want to go back to the RNC here. But when people say, oh, you're a Christian, you believe Muslims are going to hell. It's like, I don't believe that. Well, it says that, and they'll, say some verse in the Bible. And I'm like, well, you know what? God is God, and God can change his mind. I'm not going to judge those people and say they're going to hell. I'm not going to do that, dude. That's scary for me. But okay, so back to the RNC and talking about Matt Walsh and stuff. I think that people like Matt Walsh and those who are calling out Amber Rose, and even those who, turn up their nose at Kid Rock and Hulk Hogan, and who was the other one that had a problem with Josh? Amber Rose. There was somebody else. But
I think he had a problem with Sean O'Brien.
Okay. Yeah, Sean O'Brien. That's right.
The Teamsters.
And it's like, look, here's where he's got it wrong. The convention is not to underscore all our ideals from back in 1980 and 1984. That's that in values and things like that. If you think that those ideas and values will open your tent up wider to let people in, sure, then it's about that. That's why those conventions were the way they were in 1984, 1988, 1980. The purpose of a convention is to open up the tent. Come inside and see the circus that we're running over here. You're going to like it, and you are welcome here. That's the purpose of the convention, not to underscore all your values and all this stuff. Because if you listen to what some people said, they weren't saying contradictory things, but Tucker Carlson's views on things were quite different. They were all rallying around Trump, but his views on things are quite different than Donald Trump himself. Even some things he said in the speech. Nikki Haley from day one, you don't have to agree with Donald like that. And J.D. Vance also, like the way he looks at economic systems is not what he originally started out to be. So it's like, man, they're opening up the tent. It's like, hey, come on in. That's the purpose. And I'm with you, Josh. I was not happy with especially Matt Walsh. He's a smart guy. He's the one that made What Is a Woman, that documentary, and it's just disappointing. It's like, whatever. Can we stop infighting for 2 seconds and win this election?
Yeah, and I normally agree. With 99% of what Matt Walsh says. Like you say, he's a smart dude. He's conservative. I normally agree with the majority of what he says. I did not agree with him on that piece, at all. Roger,
well, it's just dumb. It's dumb because, hey, at the end of the day, this is about an election. So it goes back to, what we were talking about with Nikki Haley voters. And I forget the people on X, that still stick by her, and even, DeSantis voters. It's like, hey, guys, gals, at this point, it's binary. Okay, so at the end of the day, if you're not out there supporting Donald Trump, if you're not voting for Donald Trump, it is a vote for Biden. Period. And it's like it goes back to when I read that, because I didn't catch the tweet initially, or the X. I think one of you guys what are we calling that? Retwixed it, or whatever the hell it is. But when I caught on there, I'm just like, man, this is really going back to the 1980s Republican Party. And when you look at especially over the last 8 years, 12 years, there's been a flip flop, right? And even more recent, where it's like when you look at your voter base now, a lot of what we used to consider the Democrat voter base has now become the Republican and GOP voter base. And I think, you get the Matt Walshes out there that are like the Amber Roses, and then people bitching about Hulk Hogan and Dana White. It's like, okay, you know what? Look how many attendees go to WWE events in the United States in a year. Look how many people have been to a Kid Rock concert in the United States in a year. Look how many OnlyFans, subscribers that Amber Rose has. Hey, man, that is Americana. That is a large swath of Americana. And I hate to tell people like Matt Walsh is like, he is the minority when it comes out to the voter base. Most people aren't like that. Most Americans are not like that. And it's mind boggling to me that, Josh always says it, man, you've got victory, right? And we're going to snatch it. We're going to do everything we can to snatch it. And it's like, hey, now I'm not saying don't have some constructive criticism and this and that, and not to change the subject, but going back to Luke, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. Like, hey, dude, I ain't judging anybody. I've got my own, character that I've got to defend when the time is right. And I think I don't even know their names, but some of the, one of the chicks on the View was talking about, I was raised Catholic, and when he said, God was with me and this and that and da 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 da.
So ridiculous.
I'm just like, you know what, man, I got my own stuff I got to answer for. She's going to have to answer for her stuff. And so I am not going to be the one to tell you that God is not with you at that time. Right.
That was so ridiculous on a number of levels. Not to turn this into a theological discussion, but, so Amazing Grace, right? So, one of the original people in the slave trade wrote that. You know where that guy is today? He's in heaven because he repented, he was saved, and he asked for forgiveness. So if you believe, he's in heaven. Part of the most heinous things, the guy's in heaven. And, I'm like, Luke, man, I judge people. I do. But when it comes down to judging their soul
we know.
where they're going,
you judge us every day.
But when it comes down to like judging somebody's soul and where they're going and stuff like that, I don't like that. I really don't try to do that, because at the end of the day, I mean, even the most evil people in the world, if you believe, right, if they're saved and they ask for forgiveness, then that's the book says where they're going.
I don't want to turn it into I actually do want to turn it into a theological discussion, but
I know you've been chomping on this for like a couple of weeks now.
I think that anyone would, if I'm fortunate enough to walk through those pearly gates, and get my final time card stamped or whatever you want to say, I think that if I'm surprised by some of the people that I see in heaven, some of the souls that have lived here on earth, I might, if I'm surprised at all, maybe I don't belong in heaven. You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, so I think the three of us have a pretty solid, at least we've got that, at least we're not judging people's eternal souls, because man, I grew up, and a lot of people who listen to this show grew up in the same Church of Christ I did. And that's what we grew up with. Well, we're the only ones going to heaven. Well, what about those Baptists over there? Nope, they're not going because they believe in whatever. Or guitar in the church? Nope, none of those people are going to heaven. And that never sat right with me. It just never did. And what I didn't realize until years later was that it never sat right with my parents either. We just never talked about that piece of it. And once that came out of the, I don't want to say came out of the closet because that doesn't sound right, but once that came to light, it kind of turned us all around. We all kind of agree. We still went to Church of Christ, but we don't have to believe all that they do. So anyway, but back to, I don't want to jump the gun either, because there's so much more to talk about
Go for it, man.
with
we can pop back.
713. So last Saturday, it hasn't even been a week. I, along the theological track, nice segue, I guess. I just, with everything that happened, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. But man, oh man, it sure does seem that Trump was right, that, God had a hand in that. It sure does seem like that. And my dad was like, God didn't have a hand in that. He didn't believe. I'm not saying God bent the bullet or anything. I'm not saying that. But it's like, there's just a lot of stuff, like just the precise moment the head was turned. The fact that, because I still don't believe it's a conspiracy. It's getting harder and harder, and we can talk about that. But it's so amazing that all that happened and gave him such a boost. And I don't know. It's just so many things, Roger, so many things. So you're in luck. Well, we're going to rehash a little bit of what we did last time. But there has been a lot more information that's come out, because Josh and I recorded right after. And I think we did a pretty good job, Josh, of not jumping to any conclusions, really. Right. So
Yep.
I don't know, Roger. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if God had a hand. It's just, man, maybe this is just the biggest turn of luck ever. I don't know.
I look at it, if you're in his position, if you're in his shoes, like if that happened to me, that's the first thing I'd jump to, right? I'm like, man, I got angels on my shoulder. Maybe it was God, maybe it was his angels, whatever. But I've got somebody that is definitely looking over me. And it was kind of funny because, last night during his speech, when the chart came up, he was like, oh, it was this chart. They've got it up because, well, this is, I didn't have a chance to see it because the last time I tried to look at it, I got shot. Right. And, you kind of chuckle or whatever, but yeah, dude, when you look at, what, an inch, right? An inch left, right. He normally doesn't look that way anyway. He's normally, engaged with the audience, that type of stuff. And so it's, I don't think it's fair from the outside looking in to say it's not fair anyway to say whether God had a hand in it or not. But I know if I was in this position, I'm like, heck yeah, man. God was looking over me. Jesus was looking over me. I had angels on my shoulders or whatever the case is. And you know what? At the same time, I'm not going to be the guy to say yes or no. I believe that now, I guess that what you can look at, what you can argue is the reasoning for it, right? Like, I don't know, he did it to save Trump, as opposed to all of us, the country, that type of stuff. But you know what? At the end of the day, man, they can, those people that are disbelievers or whatever, they can argue that with their creator. That's, you have that argument with God at the end of the day. That's not my place. But if I was him, I would feel the exact same way. How could you not?
I think there was, I think there was some divine intervention, because there was with everything that led up to set the conditions for that, and then for it not to not to be successful. I do think there was the divine intervention. Now, why was it not successful? That's for Donald J. Trump to figure out. That's for him to try and figure out. Okay, why am I still here? That's for nobody else but him. He's got to figure that out. Somebody asked me one time. They're agnostic, and they were like, well, why did this guy? Why did the helicopter crash? But the guy walked away from it. A little private pilot, a little one-seater, type deal. And it was like, well, why did God crash the helicopter? It was like, well, God crashed the helicopter to teach that dude a lesson. I don't know what that lesson is. It's that guy's job. It's like, he's got to figure that out, but it's, yeah, I think there was too many things that had happened to set those conditions for it to just be happenstance. I really do. And some people may disagree with that, and that's fine. But like you said, that's, at the end of the day, man, when you pass from this world, hey man, nothing may happen, and that's fine. And I've always looked at it, people are like, well, how do you know? What if you're wrong? I'm like, well, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm right? That's what you got to be worried. What if I'm right? If I'm wrong, nothing happens. Done. But what if I'm right? And you're not prepared. You're not, you're not in the right. hey man, it's not where I want to be.
If you talk to statisticians, people who are truly, they do real risk analysis. You put it through a deep risk analysis. True statisticians will tell you, you know what? It's better just to go ahead and believe in eternal life and live the way that you need to live to attain that, and also you should probably believe in hell and do everything you can to stay out of it, because although I'm an atheist, this is what the statisticians would say, although I'm an atheist, the risk just doesn't work out. Straight to what you're saying, Josh, it's actually scientific. Like, even if there is no God, okay, well, then it's just over. But oh boy, you made a big mistake if you didn't live that way, But I'm sitting here getting upset about, the assassination attempt right now and how it was handled up to that point, of course, because more stuff has come out, but just how it's being handled afterwards, I'm getting more and more worked up. And what I was just thinking about just now was, what if this was an attempt on a sitting president? Doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat, whatever. You better believe that we would have more information coming out, not just on the case itself, but people sitting up talking about it. We'd be demanding press conferences. We'd be demanding all these things. We haven't gotten much at all. And the reason, I'm convinced, the reason is because it's not a sitting president, okay, but also because it's Donald Trump. We said this, whenever we, of course, Sunday, I guess, when we recorded, but it's already being memory hold. It's like it hadn't even been a week yet. It's, even my nerves are not nerves, but even my, level of being upset has subsided a little bit, and which is wrong. It shouldn't be. I should be just as upset as I was, Saturday night when we were talking, Roger, about events that have, really, really had an emotional impact where you were angry or just worked up. Of course, 9/11, right? Benghazi is a big one. The pullout from Afghanistan, and this. I'm still not over the pullout in Afghanistan, and people out there just need to, I don't know. I wish it erodes our own faith in our institutions, but it also, the whole world's watching this. It's like, you guys can't, why isn't anybody talking about this? Why aren't we having daily press conferences about it? It's just, I'm starting to get more and more upset. And like Josh always said, it's getting harder and harder to not be that black helicopter person, But I'm still at the point right now, unless y'all can convince me in the course of this podcast, I'm still going to go with never attribute to malice what can be explained by incompetence, malice or conspiracy. And man, Roger, what do you have to say about the level of incompetence before, during, and after?
It's incredible. And we've both done some work, with these folks, and we've done, a lot of work with folks like this that are involved in these type of events. And it's, it's funny because as my boy, and he's way more in tune into like the social media and TikTok and what folks are putting out there. And, and he's sold on conspiracy theory. And part of it is, well, it's lack of experience, right? It's inexperience. Like, oh, that's because you still have faith in the federal government. Like, you have no idea what incompetence is. You don't have, 3 decades of working with the federal government to realize what true incompetence is. And so that's the first thing, man. When you look at it, it's just straight incompetence. It's just like, it's incredible. But I would tell you this, I firmly believe that even the leaks that are coming out now, a lot of these leaks are coming from local law enforcement. And you know what? They're coming from local law enforcement because the Secret Service was very, very quick to poop on local. Hey, man, that wasn't us. That wasn't us. That was local law enforcement, right? Now, of course, you're the local. You're like, whoa, here. Let's be real. So now you're starting to see a lot of these leaks come out. I think, the bigger issue here, and we texted about this a little bit, and it's not just this. It goes back to all the events that you mentioned, and specifically, to Afghanistan. For some reason, I don't know if it's because of the age of the shock jock is over, right? It's because that has become the norm. But people don't seem to care as much or get as angry or as fired up about events as they should. Now I know that there's a political reason for it. So when you look at the left, they want to memory hold the assassination attempt as much as they can, or at least downplay it, right? Which you're already seeing the pundits. Oh, it was staged. Hey, you know what? Yeah, okay. So us three, we're a little bit dumb and a little crazy and this and that. At no time have we been like, hey, you know what? To get more C3 viewers, hey Josh, I want you to pretend to shoot me in the head, but just nick my ear so I can, so we can get a couple more YouTube viewers, right? It makes no sense. But the problem is people don't realize that, or aren't giving, in my opinion, enough attention to, like, hey man, most likely what's going to be our next president was an inch away from getting assassinated in 2024 over a guy. I was talking to my neighbor this week, like, our houses are farther apart than that building was. There's just not the continued anger and outrage and the demanding of answers for it. I mean, and you even saw it with Cheeto when she went to the RNC convention, where you had, a couple of the senators and you had a lot of the folks when I said, well, that was unprofessional. No, it wasn't. And what's unprofessional is that you're still not angry about this. You know what else is unprofessional? The fact that we still have American hostages being held in Gaza. And when was the last time you heard about that? Like, where's that outrage at? When you look at Afghanistan, dude, it's all this stuff. It's like, how do you let that stuff go? And I don't know if it's just because, again, the shock jock era is over and the way the news cycle is and the stuff that we've had come out is just, you become desensitized to it. But there should still be genuine anger and accountability, right? The need and want for accountability over what happened. I mean, think about it. And I don't care Republican or Democrat. It's like, you literally had probably our next president, but RNC nominee almost assassinated. And the canary in the coal mine was Scalise. I mean, where was that outrage, right? Now, Fox covered it for a couple days. I'll give it to them. I don't know if MS, DNC covered it all. Scalise had some pain in his side, so he bent over. Yeah, he was shot. They kind of glossed over that. And then you had a sitting Supreme Court justice, right? How quickly did that news blow over? You had a sitting Supreme Court justice that the guy probably should have got away with it. I mean, not got away as in, he would have been successful, right? For whatever reason, it didn't happen. But it's like, man, you've had 2 assassination attempts. Now you've had a third on a former president. Everybody's cool with it, and I know the left are doing it because of the politics, because that was, I mean, at the time it happened and you saw Trump stand up, fight, and the American flag and this, and it's like, man, this thing's over. It is over as far as the election goes. So there's going to be a big push. And I know we'll get into the Democrats later, but there's going to be a big push from the left to kind of downplay that stuff. But the anger and the outrage just isn't there on the right. Like I thought like it should be. Right. And it's no different than Afghanistan with the service members. And this is what pisses me off about Democrats. When you look at the withdrawal from Afghanistan and the 13 service members that died, that were killed, okay, totally preventable. Hear the admin talk about it? Once, KJP came out and, sorrow for the family. And okay, next question. And then, Biden said something that I don't even understand what he said. He bumbled around for about 90 seconds, and then moved on. And then it went away. And it went away because they don't want to keep that optic in the news cycle because it's a stain on the Democrat. Well, it should be a stain on the Democrats. It should be a stain on any administration out there. And I guess my fear as I think through this, as I talk through it, is that, maybe the political motivations have overcome everything else, right? I mean, just basic humanity. I think maybe the political motivations and the millions and millions of lemmings that are on both sides have just overtaken, all cause and all reason. It's frustrating, dude. I mean, I'm with you 100%.
Part of it too, and I was going to ask you guys what your opinion was. I think I know what it is, but I wanted to ask you anyway. So this kind of segues into libs of TikTok. And since
God's work,
yeah. So since the for those who may not know, since the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump, A lot of people on the left, everybody from elected officials to, cashiers at Home Depot have come out and said, things like, oh, I can't believe you missed, I wish you would not have missed. I wish you would have been successful and blah, blah. Well, libs of TikTok on X has been on the warpath, straight up, reposting those folks and what they, reposting their social media posts and calling them out. And, folks have taken that, and some folks have taken that in their own hands, and they've gone to, people's places of work, visited them, put them on camera, put them on social media, and blasted them, for what they posted. And, some of these companies have fired those employees. They're like, oh yeah, no, we do not want this smoke, right? Because
Quick,
right?
Quick.
They don't want that smoke, especially in today's day and age. So of course, the left comes out and the left's like, oh, I thought you guys, thought the right was against cancel culture, and the right is divided. I've seen it about 50-50, but I've seen a lot of prominent conservatives come out against it, saying, oh, this is wrong. This is not who we are. And I wanted to get your guys' opinion again. I think is, when it comes to quote unquote cancel culture, should we be doing that? Should the right be doing that?
Okay, so this is a good question. Is it the right thing to do? Because I think what you're asking about is there was a Home Depot employee, older woman, probably in her mid to late 50s, I'm guessing, who posted something on her private social media about being, damn, he needs to take aiming lessons or something. Whatever she posted, it was basically saying, I wish they would have got him. And so somebody took it upon themselves to track this person down at work, confront them, film them. And I believe while this person was filming, the lady who said this, she said it again. Okay. And then Home Depot fired her, got canceled. She got canceled. Now, the argument from people like Peachy Keenan on this is, why are you going after the Home Depot employee? You need to be going after, bigger fish. You're getting the low hanging fruit. No reason for somebody to lose their job. Okay. So the question is and that's happened countless times to people on the right, who have said something about gays or whatever, and they'll get fired from their job. They get canceled too. Is that tactic, is that gentlemanly warfare? Is that something we should be doing in our everyday lives? The answer, in my opinion, is no. But it's like Josh is always saying, you gotta play their game, right? You gotta play by their rules, otherwise you're gonna get killed. You're gonna just be stamped out of existence. So this whole thing, I believe, is a bit of a cycle. The left started it. They laid down the rules, and we've said it multiple times on X this week. We told you weren't going to like the new rules. We told you, welcome to your world. Welcome to the world you created. So they started it. A lot of people on the right got canceled, and people like us, the little guys, the foot soldiers, if you want to call it a culture war, a political war, whatever, we are the ones out there fighting it every day, or just living in it. Shouldn't even say fighting in it, but living in it. But it started to get into our minds that we have to watch what we say. We have to watch what we say. We do it on this podcast. We've done it before, where it's like we talked maybe the first 20 minutes about a very sensitive issue, and we decided, you know what, let's just cut that out. Because are we really ready for that smoke? Are we really ready for that smoke? And the answer is, yeah, I don't want to give up, what I've got for a podcast that makes us no money. I mean, I love you guys and I love the audience and everything, but I mean, I'm sorry that I don't make a living doing this podcast. So it's like, it's not worth it. So we had to watch what we said. Now the culture is reaching a boiling point, and you have an issue like this where I think that any reasonable person would agree. It's like, I'm glad a person did not die, a fellow American, someone running for president, and then you got people wishing for a suicide attempt, and people on the right, specifically libs of TikTok, is like, okay, we're going to do what they did. So now these foot soldiers are starting to lose their jobs. They're starting to get a taste of their own medicine. Did that person deserve that? Maybe not. That's the big thing, is people like, she lost her livelihood, but she was a foot soldier as well. And in war, foot soldiers are always the first ones to get killed. They just are. They're the ones out there living the war, fighting it every single day, standing up for what they believe in. And yeah, now they're getting it too. So now we're in open warfare, right? I think that when I said it was a cycle early on, I'm hoping that over the course of the next few years, and it could be a while, that everyone will realize, you know what you put out there on social media doesn't really represent Home Depot as a business. And that'll be just across the board, right or left, realizing that I'm probably wrong on it being a cycle. It'll probably just get worse and worse and worse. But hey, at the end of the day, to answer your question, Josh, yeah, you know what? That's going to happen to people like that. So you know what? Now you people over there on the left, you need to be watching what you're saying now, just like I've been watching what I've been saying for the past 8 years or however long it's been. Just like we have to cut off 20 minutes before of a podcast because we said something that might be a little spicy. We ain't ready for that smoke. So yeah, you know what? I'm not saying that lady had it coming. I will say it because she had it coming the same way a foot soldier has it coming. You were in the war, you were there, you chose to make a stand, and you know what? Now those are the consequences. And that's just is what it is. That's how I feel.
Yeah. So for those that think our podcast sucks, it's because the best parts are always cut out. Just let everybody know that. I think, like, generally speaking, I have no issues with it. I mean, because one, it's a conscious decision she made. And dude, there's some basic humanity involved there. It's like, come on. I mean, that's just not what you want for a fellow American. Where I draw the line is, like, I have a problem going to the place of work. Like, that I think is uncalled for. Now, somebody posts something on social media, it's kind of funny you said private social media, and I'm not picking on you, but it's like, it's social, right? So somebody posts something on social media, or even like with us, with our podcast and what we put out there, in my opinion, that is fair game. Well, every company.
It's your personal though. I'm not representing the company I work for on my social media when I'm posting. Opinions are my own type thing. That's what I mean by personal, private. It has nothing to do with who.
I was joking with you. It's all right. Every company out there has some policy on culture, ethics. This is what we stand by, and this and that. So somebody who posts things like that out in the open on X, TikTok, whatever the case is, I have no problems with it. Like, hey, I'm blasting that to whatever company. Is this the type of employee? Is this what you want representing you?
That's a fair point.
Right? And every company that we have.
That's a fair point. I guess what I'm getting at is maybe the companies will adjust those things. Like you live, I don't know. So now you're convincing me I'm wrong. This is never going away. But that's a fair point. I completely understand.
I don't think it is going away. I don't think it is going away. If anything, I mean, it's always been there, right? If anything, they just made it easier now. All right. It's easier to report it. It's easier to publicize it. But again, where I have the problem, where I draw the line is when you go to somebody's place of work and you have that confrontation, that I have an issue with. I don't like the doxing. I don't like the approaching or confronting somebody at their place of work. You want to take something that somebody's posted publicly and blast it out to the world and send it to the company or to all your friends or whatever. I don't have any issues with that.
Yeah. Libs of TikTok caught a lot of flack, but it goes back to the whole, right? It goes back to what we've talked about numerous times on here is, we talked about who was at the convention, but we didn't talk about who was not at the convention, right? That was key. The Mitt Romneys.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like the
Cheneys,
the Paul Ryan, the
Kinzingers.
Cheneys, right? They were not at the convention. And, if it says a lot because there is a shift. I think there is a major cultural shift. We saw it begin in 2016. All right. Trump came in, he had to pick a Pence because at the end of the day, he did not own the party in 2016 when he ran. Now, if Trump and J.D. Vance win, that is the new Republican Party. The old GOP is dead. It is dead as Dillinger, and it is gone. And anybody who's been paying attention for the last 20 years, we've lost the culture war. We have lost the culture war time and time again. And because the GOP has played by the the Marquise of Queensberry rules for forever, not realizing they're in a back alley knife fight. And Libs of TikTok is using their platform. Chaya is using her platform. They're like, oh no, we're in a knife fight. I'm in a knife fight too. You want to play this game? We're going to play this game. Oh, it sucks, doesn't it? Yeah, it's terrible. Wow. Yeah, you don't like that, do you? And going after the low hanging fruit. I think back to Saving Private Ryan. You remember when they rolled dude up? Halfway through the movie, after when the medic gets killed, and Tom Hanks lets that guy go, and he's just some private in the Vermont. And then who kills Tom Hanks later as he's going across the bridge? That guy. So people out there can say, well, oh, they're just foot soldiers. That lady at Home Depot, she would have put you on a train or stood by as you got loaded on a train and not lost a second of sleep over it. She would have doxed you. She would have gotten you fired from your job, and she wouldn't have lost a second of sleep over it. So, hey, man, that's just turnabout. And turnabout is fair play. You want to play the game? We'll play the game. It's like Luke said. We said it. We told you you don't want to play by these rules. You do not want to make these rules. You forged ahead. You went on, and okay, well, welcome to the new rules.
Yeah,
we told you weren't going to like them.
Yeah, I'll say this: it's like it's necessary. It has to be done. It has to. We can't just sit back and let this be done to ourselves and down to the very foot soldier level. So yeah, I agree with most of what Peachy Keenan says. I do, but on this one, she's wrong. She's wrong, and it's because it's because she's a woman. That's why. She's too empathetic. I'm not. She's too empathetic. She's too empathetic. She really is. So I'll say this about this whole, cancel culture and all this stuff, and now the Home Depot getting fired. I put it in the chat. Right or wrong, it's necessary. But I'll say this: just bouncing off what Roger said. He said some smart things there, and it kind of made me think. It's toxic. It's right or wrong. It's necessary, but it is toxic practice for a cohesive society. It is.
Sure.
And now we're having to do it, and we're not coming closer together by doing that. But you know what? I kind of am an optimist, and I do think that there will be some kind of understanding amongst your everyday average person. I still think that the everyday average person. Well, I do live in Texas, so people are generally nice to each other here, even libs.
Now, let me ask you this though, because real quick to interrupt you, we talked about cancel culture, and she was canceled. I am a fan of letting your dollar speak for you, but look at it this way: I think it's better that, again, I'm not a fan of approaching her at Home Depot, her place of work, but blasting them out to their company, that's better than canceling the entire company.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. Speaking of canceling, y'all know who Max Boot is? He's a journalist.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
So this dude was on the train of Russia. Trump is Putin's plaything. Trump is a Russian agent. All these things, and Max Boot's his wife, was caught basically spying for Rogers people. For South Korea, she, acting as an unregistered foreign agent, and it's hilarious. It's like, man, Max, you just couldn't help yourself, could you? And people can't tell me if they're married, right? He knew what was going on, and he probably quasi participated in it. He knew what she was doing. And it's like, man, oh man, how about that? Because he was a real big voice about Trump being a Russian asset. I just think that is so delicious. It's perfect.
He was the self-proclaimed quote unquote spy hunter for the Washington Post.
Was he really? And he called himself that?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Again, everything that they accused Donald Trump of doing, they were doing themselves. Everything. And of course he knew, because she got paid tens of thousands of dollars, and a lot of it she was paid in high-end products, right? Watches, Dolce & Gabbana bags, everything. So yeah, dude, he had to have known. your wife shows up with 10 G's in cash. Hey man, but what
Now,
you
were there
selling pictures of
gold
your feet
bars
or what?
involved? Were there gold bars involved like Menendez?
No, I don't think there was gold bars involved like that guy.
How
He's
do
got
you
gold
play that
bars in
down,
his
dude?
closet.
Because aren't they out there, like, isn't he trying to blame it on his wife? And I mean, the trial is over. He's convicted. And he trying to like blame it on the wife, and the wife's like blaming it on him. It's like, okay, guys, we have like $100,000 in gold bars in y'all's house.
Yeah.
Like, I think it is safe to say that y'all knew about this.
Yeah.
And y'all both conspired to do this.
I honestly, I have not kept up really close with that one. I do know he was found guilty. What's going to be interesting is he going to be removed, because he's not going to be sentenced for a while, but is he going to be removed from the Senate?
Eventually.
Yeah, because they kicked they kicked what's his face out. What was it, from Rhode Island or Connecticut? The Republican in the House who told all those lies to get elected. They were quick to kick him out. Okay, now you got a convicted felon. Of course, we're all we're clutching our pearls over convicted felons, right? Especially the left. Okay, you gonna kick your own convicted felon out of the Senate? Let's see. How's that majority gonna go in the in the Senate once you bounce Menendez out?
Yeah. Back to Max Boot though, and it's one of two things, bro. Either you were involved in it, not involved like guilty, but either you knew something was going on deep down, right? Deep down you knew, or you're just a complete idiot who happens to be able to write. Okay. Yeah. Either way, it's a bad thing. And and just looking on did you guys see the video? I'm just stunned by the stupidity and crookedness of these people who are at the top of the food chain when it comes to, politics and culture, political culture and things like that. Did you guys see the little, I don't know what you'd call it, little altercation. So, verbal altercation between Matt Gaetz and that other dude on the floor. That was
such a tool.
That was
dude.
awesome though.
Such a tool.
Because this dude, Matt Gaetz, who was that guy that called him out? Do you know who that was? Well, Matt,
it's one of Kevin McCarthy's aides or guys he hangs out with.
It was beautiful because Matt Gaetz is like harping on some dude, and this guy behind him, kind of bigger guy, says, Matt, or he didn't even call him Matt. He goes, Gaetz, stop being an asshole. And Gaetz, he snapped up, he turned around, this guy, and met the guy, like the guy was not backing down, face to face. And the guy's like, he goes, I don't even know who you are. He goes, it doesn't matter who the F I am. You don't need to be an asshole. And Gaetz kind of went forward, and then that guy was not backing down, and he's just like, okay. And he just walked off, said something over his shoulder. But it's like, guys, that's why they don't invite us to events like that. Because that dude who called him out is like us. It's like they're pompous, moron, stupid people, and it's not just the politicians. It's the journalists like Max Boot and all these other people who prop them up. It's breathtaking to me how stupid these people are. I know there's smart people in the back rooms on the staff. I know that.
You know who he didn't do that to? It's the senator, right, from Oklahoma, the big boy is the senator.
Oh,
yeah. So and that's the problem. You get people like Gaetz, complete asshole. Dude, it pissed me off when I saw that. I'm like, yeah, you go to McCarthy and this and that, older man, and McCarthy's pretty mellow and reserved, but it's like, oh, but you ain't going to that big boy over there in Oklahoma and getting up in his face because he'll knock your ass out.
Mark Wayne
Mullen. He's a senator, right? Or is he?
He was the senator. He was the guy who Sean O'Brien, the Teamsters president, who testified in Congress. He was the senator. He's like, "You want to go right now? We'll go right now." He stood up, started taking his jacket off. That's a big boy, man.
So that's what I'm saying, and that's So Josh asked the question earlier. Man, we are really all over the place. This is the ADHD podcast from hell, but it's great. I like it.
Love it.
So
love it.
Josh was asking earlier about the. Oh, you brought it up earlier. Shoot, it wasn't the cancel culture thing. It was before that. Talk about the Brit Hume thing, the X that we did. where they're calling out Cheadle. Yeah, so let's go back to Cheadle real quick. So on the floor, you mentioned it. They, the senator or the Congress had a phone call to get a briefing from her, and basically it's supposed to be like an hour or something like that, or 90 minutes. They spent the first 30 minutes talking about the Secret Service and what they do to prep for. It was just filler. It was just nonsense BS. And when it got to what do we actually know, they got into it for about 10 minutes and the call was disconnected. So they didn't get to ask any questions. So they didn't get any information from that briefing from the Secret Service director. So you had a few senators who, was it Blackburn? Was she one of them?
Yeah, it was Marsha Blackburn. I forget the other guy.
So they follow her out. She appeared at the convention for whatever reason, and people were saying, "Oh, so she could talk to Donald Trump." And it's like, what was she doing there? Why? That was kind of stupid to go to the. That's just dumb. Why would you do that? But they followed her out, hounding her. Basically, they were hounding her, asking her questions. She wasn't answering them, and Brit Hume got his panties in a wad over that. I respect Brit Hume. He's old school, right? He's like, well, that's just not necessary. And I basically said, I got on X under our account and I was like, listen, that is necessary at this point. The people want to know what's going on, and they're not answering any questions. And who are those people that were hounding them out? They're representatives of the people. And so, yeah, I have no problem with that. I wish Ted Cruz was sitting there hounding them. I wish one of my senators was sitting there hounding them, because that's the answers I want. There were a few comments, that X actually blew up, or Twix, that Twix actually blew up. But to the Mark Wayne Mullen thing and the O'Brien thing, it's like, in my opinion, it's like we've gotten to a point where I'm ready to see some canings on the floor. I'm ready to see, Secret Service directors who have obviously screwed up. If the buck stops with you, well, then you screwed up, getting hounded when they don't answer questions in a hearing, basically not a hearing, but a conversation behind closed doors. It's like, hey, the old rules are gone. Okay. AOC walking the halls looking for Mitch McConnell. Remember when she was doing that? That's the world we live in now. That's the world we live in. If they're going to do it, we're going to do it too. We're going to make a spectacle. That's all there is to it. We're going to make that JD Vance's grandmother Mamaw spectacle. It's time to go Mamaw with it. I don't know, Roger. I mean, should I back off and, be like some of our listeners, like, well, we must not act that way. We must act dignified in the way we do things.
No, they should get in their face. You know what? I mean, they owe answers to the American people. And what I want to believe, now, obviously they've got their own political agenda, and that's part of it. But what I want to believe is, because here's what's going to happen, right? She's being subpoenaed to the House floor on Monday. So by the time this episode drops. So she'll be up there. She's going to give some evasive answers. Then she's not going to give any answers. And you know what's going to happen to her? Absolutely nothing. She's not going to resign. Nobody's going to make her resign. Nobody's going to fire her. And so what I hope is that there is some genuine outrage there that, like, hey, man, I'm tired of this stuff. Because I tell you what, after that attempt, I get a day or two because you're letting the dust settle. You're getting intel, you're getting info. But there's a phone call from the chief of staff that says, hey, you either need to resign like tomorrow morning or we're going to fire you. So we'll let you, whatever looks best for you on your resume. But that's what's got to happen. And I would tell you this as a leader, right? Like, I would want to believe that if any of us three, heaven forbid, were the director of the Secret Service, we would tender our resignation. I would want to believe that, hey, look, I'm going to get you through this next couple of days of, what's going on and this and that. And then I will formally resign and go back to Pepsi, where she came from. And I know she was Secret Service before then, so I'm not trying to pick on her too much. Well, yeah, I don't really care. But that's what any normal person would do, I think. But you know what? She could not care less. None of them do. It's just as bad as Mayorkas just sitting there. That dude does not give a flying F. You know why? Because he ain't quitting and they ain't going to fire him. They know that. All that tough talk from Joe, anybody that shows disrespect to they're going to be fired on the spot. All that crap. It's like, dude, you're full of crap. You have straight incompetence, straight negligence, A guy, your political opponent almost got assassinated. Luck of God, I mean, you look at, go back to what you're talking about with, the police officer that was being hoisted up, and that's what caused the shooter to turn back. I mean, all those little events. I mean, hey, man, it wasn't the Secret Service's actions that prevented that. That happened. Those rounds went off, and killed a guy, right? Killed a guy, wounded another, and then wounded the president, former president. But they know nothing is going to happen.
Well, no,
It's all this outrage. They're going to have the hearing, and we'll move on to the next news cycle.
Yeah, and that's been a large part. That's been a large part of the reason why we've gotten our butt handed to us over the last 20 years, in everything. And again, it goes back to you made these rules. When in 2018, when Maxine Waters came out and was like, let's make sure we show up wherever we have to show up. And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, department store, gas station, you get in their face and you let them know they're not welcome. You let them know, you run them out of there. Right. And they, Sarah, I mean, even, Sarah Huckabee Sanders brought it up, in her speech at the convention when her family got run out of the Red Hen restaurant, but they got harassed to the point where like, we're just going to, we're leaving. And the restaurant's like, hey, we need you guys to leave because they got harassed while they were just out eating dinner. And so, okay, again, not a problem. You wanted these rules. We told you not to use these, not to play by these. We said this is not the way to do things. You chose to continue it. So guess what? Now these are the new rules. Welcome to the new world. And if you're the director of the Secret Service and you just had a former president almost get assassinated and you're upset because a couple of elected officials, a couple of senators stopped you to ask you some questions because you gave them the runaround to, previously, if that upsets you, then yeah, you should probably just go ahead and tender your resignation and you should go back home and never say another word again. This entire thing has been ludicrous from the start, right? And Luke and I talked about it. We started out, initial thing. We were like, hey, we're not going to, speculate. We don't know. It's like, we'll give it time to develop, let the details come out because that's a large problem of everything, other things in the country is people want to jump to conclusions, before the facts start coming out. But all we said was, hey, leaving that building within, 130 yards, whatever it was, unguarded was ludicrous. Like that is just, that has made zero tactical sense. Right. But then more started coming out and it was like, oh, there were actually police inside that building while the dude crawled on top of it. And then, it's more and more starts coming out. It's like, oh, well, no, they knew him. He was known to police, known to the U.S. Secret Service hours before when he tried to get through security with a rangefinder in his pocket. And then, you lead up, it's like they saw him, they took a picture of him because that picture of him from behind where, it's taken from up above and you see him, you see the back of his shirt and he's looking off to the left a little bit. That was taken. They're like, well, that was the day of because that was the clothes he was wearing. That was taken by one of the police officers in the building that he eventually crawled up on top of because they're like, what's this guy doing over here? And then, and then more starts coming out and you're like, it was just failure after failure after failure after failure. And, and Luke, you're right. You guys are absolutely right. It's the city manager for Butler that came out and was like, oh, you want to throw my police officers under the bus? No. The U.S. Secret Service was in charge of this, and this. And, to the point, kind of back to the divine intervention piece is all of that, I wish it not. I wish it had not got to that point that it did. But had that kid been stopped, the first time it's like, oh, this dude's got a rangefinder in his pocket. Guess what? We're going to go ahead and hold you until this event is over and and the president's out of the area. Then none of this would have happened, and I don't think we'd have the energy behind Trump that we do right now. It would be gone. And Luke made this point, in the podcast, in the our last episode. So I'm not glad it happened, but again, like there was just like a series of unfortunate events led to this. Thankfully, Trump was spared, and now we haven't seen, and granted, not all Republicans, but a large part, like we haven't seen this type of energy behind a Republican since 2016. Because even in 2020, I didn't think we saw this because you still had the old GOP, meddling. But right now, the old GOP is quiet. They're just quiet. They're just like, you know what? I think our time is, our time is done. But this is what's going to happen with DEI hires, and then now it's come out that they're saying a whistleblower came out and said that the majority of those, folks that were there on Trump's detail weren't even Secret Service to begin with.
Yeah.
They were kind of cobbled together. So the Secret Service obviously has some issues, starting with their director, who seems to be above accountability, because how many, it's been a weekend, nobody's been fired yet, which is amazing to me.
Well,
yeah,
it would be interesting to see who's on administrative leave right now, paid administrative leave, because it is. Somebody has to be, because shit's going to flow downhill on this one for sure. Whoever was in charge, whoever's the Pittsburgh office, Secret Service, that guy's gone, or girl. It's probably whatever. But I don't call that kid Crooks. I call him Retardy Oswald. I just, God, I mean, thank goodness there wasn't like a former trained, Marine up there, an actual rifleman up there.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But it also came out, Josh, that he was flying I don't know, this is unconfirmed, maybe it might be wrong, but he was flying a drone around earlier in the day. That's, I don't know. I'm going to hold judgment on that because I only saw that from a couple of sources. But okay, so I want to ask you guys this. So on the Twix I made with Britt Hume, I called this the biggest failure in Secret Service history. And some people in the comments challenged me on that. And I'll kick this to Roger, and we can kick this around real quick. I still think, because of the level of incompetence, this is the greatest Secret Service failure. Now, a lot of people called me out, and they said, no, it's JFK. One idiot called me out and said it was Lincoln. I was like, genius, the Secret Service didn't exist as a protective service when Lincoln was alive. Morons. But
it didn't come in until right after that.
Yeah. Well, Lincoln had actually signed into law the Secret Service, but they were only doing counterfeit stuff. So anyway,
right.
But people are always going to JFK, right? And I'm like, well, I will give you the fact that the outcome was worse, definitely worse. But there were definite differences between the JFK and what happened the other day, and Reagan and all that stuff. And, they're arguing with me like this and that, and he should have been riding around in an open car. And it's like, well, that was at Kennedy's insistence, I believe. So it's like the Secret Service, I mean, like, I know their job, but, in some cases they can tell the president no, in very, very, very few cases, though. So Roger, I mean, I know the outcome, it's like your team, like the Steelers get beat 68-0, or they get beat, 12-13. Either way is a failure, right? They're both a failure. When the bullet left that barrel, that's a failure on the Secret Service's part, right? So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, what we've been outlining, just the level of incompetence, is just fail. Like, I didn't know until today or yesterday that Lee Harvey Oswald was actually way closer than Retardy Oswald was on Saturday. But what are your thoughts on that? Do you call this the biggest failure, or do you think it's, McKinley or Reagan or JFK?
Obviously, like you said, you can look at the end result, right? But I think what makes this arguably the biggest failure for me is the time period that we live in. It's like when the towers went down, right? Like that had never. Now, there were other attacks in the World Trade Center. You had a bomb that went off and that type of stuff. But when you look at the world that we live in today, and at that distance, come on, man. And you look at all the resources we have available. Like when you go back to JFK, what they had available then versus what we have available now, right? It's night and day. When you look at the evolution of threats, when you look at the evolution of counter threats, risk mitigation, You've got a $4 trillion federal government. So, I mean, you've got every asset and resource in the world, and that's what makes it worse. And everyone after this will continue to make it worse unless it's some extravagant, EMP to the head that kills a guy or something like that. But when you look at the simplicity of the attack in today's society, I mean, dude, that's a no-brainer. I mean, it's like of all those people out there, and you heard the crowd say it, they're kind of like, hey, that's a pretty big building over there. Yeah, there's a guy up there with the rifle. Like, come on, man. We're not talking about somebody that was through like mirrored glass, a mile and a half away that pulled a legend shot on somebody. I mean, that didn't happen. We're not talking about some extravagant, 2-year plan, bomb in a building somewhere that, they knew the president was going to visit or whatever. That's what makes it the worst. And so when you go back, I mean, that's what leads me to, to the whole incompetence piece. What worries me the most about it though is like, hey, what corrective actions are going to come from this? Because you're at the point now where if I'm Donald Trump, I'm like, and I'm not taking any, because I'll tell you this, we talk about the Secret Service and really we're talking about the leadership, or at least I do. I talk about the leadership because I will tell you this, rounds went off and 2 or 3 of those dudes immediately, I say immediately after 8 rounds went off, 2 of those dudes immediately jumped on the president. Okay. And there was something to be said for a guy or gal. We're not talking about the Cheeto bag that held, they hid behind everybody. But the 2 dudes that immediately jumped on him and took him to the ground. I mean, there's something to be said for people that would literally try to get in between a round and another human being. But it's just like, hey, man, what's going to happen from this thing? Like, where is the fix for this? Going back to a bigger issue, and I was talking to my son about this. It's like, hey, one of you guys mentioned it, but DEI makes its way through every branch of the government. We start talking about that stuff and incompetence starts to make its way through. This is not isolated. It's not just compartmentalized. It's the same people that sat there and told you that there's no inflation. Inflation's transitory. Oh, now we've got the same people that have screwed all of that up. Okay. It's not just compartmentalized to that one federal section. It makes its way through and we talked about this a couple episodes ago with general law enforcement. You've got folks that are really, really good, but the DEI hires, and not even just the DEI hires, just the crappy quality, man, that makes its way through every level of every branch and every office of government. So it just goes back to one, I think arguably, yeah, it's the greatest failure of the Secret Service. And we've got some listeners that used to work for the Secret Service. So I'm kind of surprised I haven't had some text yet. I'm sure his phone has been blowing up. So I haven't reached out to him yet to kind of get some of his thoughts. But it's not even just a failure on that organization by itself and the director. I mean, you guys, I don't know if you guys brought up in the last episode, I don't listen to our podcast when I'm not producing or involved in it, but we were involved with some of this stuff, right? With some of the training. And what happened? Hey man, you guys can't do that. You guys can't help out with that. We're breaking some rules here or whatever. And I'm not saying we should be breaking rules or whatever, but there were obviously vulnerabilities that the Secret Service saw that they had way back then that they were trying to fix. At the end of the day, and we won't get into all the details, but at the end of the day, they stopped it. I can't think of, obviously you look at end result with JFK and you've had, several attempts. You had Ronald Reagan. Of course, he was obviously moving, right? Was he going to the vehicle or coming out of the vehicle? I think he was going to the vehicle.
He was going
right?
to.
Yeah, he was leaving the Washington Hilton.
Right, and then going to the vehicle. So, you look at things like that. But again, you're looking at a very different threat cycle back then versus now. We're like, dude, it should be no surprise. We were texting the other day and, we're talking about terrorist attacks. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, because that's the nature that's the state that we live in today. So yeah, dude, I think it's arguably the worst in my opinion. And ones that happen after this, it's going to be just as bad, if not worse.
Well, I think, and those people talking about JFK and all that, like Luke said, the end result was obviously worse, but nobody warned JFK. Nobody, was pointing to the book depository building saying, hey, there's a guy with a gun up there, before his car comes through. The same thing with Reagan. It wasn't like John Hinckley, like, hey man, there's a guy with a gun standing right here on the sidewalk. I don't know, you guys going to do something about that? And John Hinckley hadn't been stopped and been like, there was some guy trying to get into the lobby of the Hilton with a gun. I don't know what all that was. It was weird. We just kind of sent him away. It is absolutely failures on multiple levels. But think thank the Lord that it ended well as it could.
I got a question for you, Josh.
Hit me.
Because I was explaining this to my son, and I forget, I stole this from somebody. I forget, somebody was on TV and they were talking about this. So, 8 rounds is a lot of rounds. Okay. But I'm trying to I'm trying to get away from being the armchair quarterback and actually putting yourself out there on the sniper team for whoever, whether it's Secret Service, local law enforcement, or whatever. It's very different when we interact with combatants or perceived combatants and threats when we're downrange, right? It's pretty cut and dry, night and day. Hey, bad guy, gun. You're not wearing what I'm wearing. I'm just going to shoot you in the face. Is there any leeway for allowing? Well, I that's the wrong term. I guess I'm looking at the sniper team that's out there. It's like, hey man, you're getting ready to shoot an American citizen. And I try to go through that thought process, because there's a lot that's happened with the government in the last several years. Like, they will prosecute your ass, right? They're going to throw you in the chair, but you're sitting there. And again, I'm not saying this happened or, but you're sitting there, you got the scope, you see this guy. It was supposed to be the, what it was like the tactical, whatever building that they were all going to meet up in or whatever. But it's like, there had to be some doubt, right? That popped in the shooter's mind that, like, is that one of us?
Sure.
Right. I mean, I think so. Right. And then you see that and you're like, is that one of us? And then, do I pull the trigger? Because again, we're not talking about shooting Haji downrange. You're talking about shooting an American citizen in the face, which, hey, if you're 100%, it's like the electric chair. If you're 100% sure, I'm all about electrocutions and death penalty. Is there any, excuse is a bad term, but you just say, hey man, if a round comes out, and Luke's typing cognitive biases were definitely flowing. It's like, is there, for lack of a better term, is there an excuse for a round coming out before that sniper pops him in the face?
I would say before Barack Obama's, first term as president, I would say, no, there's no excuse. Now, hey, you got that, and so it's funny because everybody sees that team that was behind Trump, the one that was photographed the most. They're not the ones who shot him. It was teams that were, if you're looking at Trump as he's talking, they were to his back right. That's the team that actually shot him.
Right.
Yeah. So, like Luke said, there's definitely cognitive biases. You have multiple departments working together. Right. So, when you're doing, and we've all, experienced this, when you're doing operations with adjacent units, there's a seam in between you and your adjacent unit. Right. And that's where, there's vulnerabilities there. It's where your coordinated instructions have to be tight. They have to be locked in. Right. So in this case, your rules of engagement, who's where, who's not where, because, you run into a situation like, like that Pat Tillman, got himself killed. It's, hey, do we have guys in there right here, and look at the corner of walk and don't walk? Yeah, those are our guys. No, those aren't our guys. So you don't know, and you're in a situation where you're like, I'm about to kill this individual. And so it made perfect sense now, of course, after the information comes out, and that's why we wait, for those snipers that were up behind Trump. A lot of folks gave that guy a lot of grief for coming up off his glass. And he was probably looking at it and saying, well, no, we have a team there. I've got to look and make sure that, hey, is this one of our guys?
Exactly.
And so again, that calamity, there's that calamity of errors, led to that. But even without that, I still think it's a point, now where it's like, man, my life could be over if I make the wrong policing decision here.
Exactly.
And so, but that's the environment that the left has created, for law enforcement.
How long was he on the roof? Do we know?
I'm hearing reports of minutes.
Does that come
I'm
out yet?
hearing reports of minutes is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was up there. 2 police officers heard something going on the roof. So, one of them went over. They found the lowest point that they could get. One boosted the other up. And when he looked up over the roof, the kid pointed his weapon at him. Right. And this is before shots were fired. And they put out a call on the net. There's a gunman on the roof. There's a gunman on the roof. Right then, even leading everything leading up to that. Right then, and I don't know if the body team was on that net or what, but right then they should have jumped on Trump and got in, and ushered him out of there. Right then, as soon as hey, there's a gunman on the roof, they have laid eyes on this guy. Right, there is no question his intent, and he might not even be going after Trump. He could,
and that's a good point, dude. That's a good point because I'm looking at it from the sniper's point of view that took him out, because that's hard, right? If we're sitting up there, I mean, I'm like, is that's got to be one of us, right? But the other course of action are the people it's the radio and the people on the ground, and you just get them off the stage. And hey, if we're wrong, it's the Clint Eastwood, in the line of fire. Hey man, sometimes the balloon just goes off and, or you hear the pop and it was a balloon and not a gunfire. So, I mean, that's the other course of action is you just get the guy off the stage. And then, hey, if it turns out that it was, such and such, hey, my bad. I mean, you're probably not going to go to jail.
Look,
for that, right?
I'm not going to call you out. I'm not going to say you're wrong about the thought process, right? Is that one of our guys? Things like that. But I'm seeing a common thread here. And we've been talking about it all night. We've got a crisis of incompetence, and it's not just with the Secret Service; it's across the board.
Yeah. I agree.
Military, so on and so forth. And you know what? You can go back to the movie Lone Survivor, or to what happened to Luttrell's team. You talk to Luttrell now. Rules of engagement is a very touchy subject for him. All right. So when we're talking about the sniper team, the crisis of incompetence comes from no clear rules of engagement. And if they are clear, well, then they're not, the people that were on that sniper team were not well trained. So the problem is I believe what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing is there was one police sniper team and one Secret Service sniper team. Are you guys okay? And the Secret Service sniper team is the one that took them out. So I think that doubt that comes in the head is because of lack of clear ROE, lack of continuous training, right? Because we got more important things to do, or whatever it is, lack of resources. I don't know. But that goes down to the minute someone heard gun, get him off the stage. People were second guessing themselves, right? The cognitive biases were in there. People were second guessing. I want to be wrong, like Clint Eastwood was when the balloon went off. They second guessed themselves. They second guessed themselves into paralysis, and we had what happened. So, and I think that, DEI has a part of that, but you could see us, the government, the tip of the spear type things, military, Secret Service, FBI, going down this road. You've been seeing it for years. They're not tier 1 operators or anything, but even, those guys are on a different level. They've got it. They've got very clear, they train, practice. That's just obviously wasn't the case with this whole detail. Yeah, it's just a rally in Pennsylvania. Nothing's going to happen. Jill Biden, she's doing an event in Pittsburgh. We're going to have to, we can pull one more agent because the cops say they've got a sniper team, whatever. It's like things are crumbling. That's what it seems like, just across the board, not just with the Secret Service. Look at the FBI, the way they handle investigations, like the Bart Simpson meme, say the line. We can't find a motive. It's like, again, what's this guy's motive? Retardy Oswald. What the hell? And then Roger had to bring me down to earth because I went down the conspiracy tunnel where they came out and he said he had 3 overseas accounts. And I was like, did you guys see this? And Roger's like, those could just be crypto accounts, man. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. That's probably what they are.
I'm probably wrong though. There's probably some Discord or Telegram. So let me throw this out there. So why, genuinely, this is incredible. Like there was very, very minimal reaction from the crowd. I mean, that thing should have been a stampede.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think
I mean, any
I'll
thoughts?
give mine real quick. I think that Trump people are just different types of people. I think they were so concerned with him, they didn't think about themselves. To me, that's what I think.
I think so. I think that I agree with Luke to an extent. I also think it was over so quick, and they sent in. As soon as that happened, the body team was on Trump as they were standing him up, stuff like that. There were other local state troopers and stuff like that, but they were already telling the crowd, all right, hey, everybody stay right where you're at, get down, don't move. And I think it was over so quick that they didn't have a time to do a stampede. And I think they may have expected it too, because they half that crowd was like, hey man, there's a guy over there with a gun.
Yeah.
It was probably a multitude of reasons why we didn't see that starburst.
Because I'm fairly certain, had I
folks.
heard a gunshot go off, I don't give a shit what they're saying over the megaphone, dude. I am getting cover and unasking the
I'm
AO.
going to go down, determine the situation, and then decide what I'm going to do in an instant. But I mean, Josh, good Lord, madness of crowds, right? All it would have taken is maybe 5 or 6 people in the grandstand, 5, 6 people bolting, and in the crowd too. You've seen that with crowds. It's like, just if a few people bolt, that herd crowd madness comes out, and then boom, everybody's gone. Because you've seen the videos, right, of the drive-by shootings, or there's a gun and somebody shoots, and then everybody it just goes. It's like, that was quick too. I'm not saying you're wrong. It's just like, it is kind of amazing. And we haven't seen all the footage either. There may have been parts that did bolt. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do find it it is odd. It's different than the videos you see on, I don't know. It's just weird.
No, it's absolutely different. I think there's a multitude of reasons. You had gunfire coming from multiple directions, right? You don't know who's who. It's like, okay, you're going to get up and run. Where are you going to go? Common sense would dictate I'm going to run away from the gunfire. But if I got gunfire to my left and gunfire to my right, it's like, where what do I do? Where am I going?
The middle.
Yeah, the middle. Well, there's a Secret Service detail. I can't run up the middle because, the president's right there. And I don't want to run at those guys because I may get shot in the face. Not by that, that cheese, that cheeseburger stuff one that was really short that couldn't, barely.
What in the hell, dude? Like, who was that person?
DI hire, man.
She was, no, I guarantee that person was DHS, Homeland Security Investigation.
Oh,
guarantee
DEI hire regardless.
Yeah, regardless.
Did you see her? Did you see the video when they got to the hospital?
No.
So somebody was filming from inside the emergency room, and so the fellas who are kitted out, looking like operators, they come up out of the vehicles, the lead vehicles, and they're they got their M4s, man. They're guns up, man. They're in the high ready, scanning everything. Same one gets out, comes up there. She's looking around. She looks at them, and then she pulls her pistol out, and it's kind of like generally doing what they're doing, but she's looking at them. It's like, okay, you need to look out for a threat. Don't look at don't look at your your mates with guns. They're scanning their sectors. You should probably scan yours too. But same one, and you're just like, that person's gonna get somebody killed. That person's gonna get somebody killed.
Ugh. Roger, you saw
I'll see if I can find it.
You saw the girl who, as soon as she closed the door, she put her sunglasses on and straightened her jacket.
Well, because you have to have priorities.
Oh my God.
You got to look.
See,
good.
we talked about that. We talked about that in the last episode. It's like, it's those, you go down to the limbic system, right? And that was preening. That was classic preening. She was so uncomfortable. She went to what made her the most comfortable. And that was what made her the most comfortable. And we all know that, and this goes back to the training thing, you can be inoculated against that. And that comes from training and repetition. And she hadn't had it. That's what I saw. When my mom called and, a couple of our listeners like, man, did you see Secret Service? What a good job they did. And I was like, I didn't see that at all. I did not see it at all. I didn't. You know?
No, but if you look good, it looks like you did a good job.
Man.
That's what matters, right? I just, the big thing, and again, like the guys that dove on Trump, I mean, good Lord, man, that's incredible. But you see and is that real? Like when they show the two dudes that dove on him, and bag of Cheetos is behind them.
Yes,
that's real.
That's a real photo. That's not.
No, that's real.
No, that's a real photo.
Oh, good Lord.
And that is why when that.
So I'm going to use the president as cover so I can shoot around.
When that came out, and somebody had drawn like, oh, here's the wage gap, right? It was, oh, dude, because all the dudes are piled on top of Trump, all right, ready to take whatever comes, and she's basically using that body pile as cover, and you're like, there's a good 2 feet in between her and that body pile.
Oh, dude, at least, yeah.
And you're like, where are you supposed to be right now? What are you supposed to be doing? But anyway, she was the one asking, once they were on him, she was the one, you could hear her like, where are we going? What are we doing? It's like, you should probably have did some rehearsals on that before, okay, hey, if something happens, this is what we're doing. This is where we're going. It was a disaster. I really thought, so we're talking Twixes that were blowing up, that Brit Hume one blew up. I really thought the one I put out last night or this morning was going to blow up, and it got like 3 likes. And I thought it was pretty witty. When I was like, that? The one that was like, man, if you thought Trump's speech was long, that girl's still trying to get that gun back in her holster.
Yeah, that was good.
Now, doesn't that piss you off though? Because man, you're like, oh, I got a great one.
Yeah.
And you'll get 3 likes and they're all from bots.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or, right? or me, going to my personal account. It was just like, I thought it was good, but apparently the interwebs did not.
Then you'll reply to somebody and said, yeah, right, douchebag. And then it'll blow up and get like 1,700 likes. And you're like, man, it's not fair.
You know what? We need to start drunk twixing. That's what we got to do.
Yeah, that could be dangerous.
Dude, we need to. Yeah. Hey, so I don't know if you guys. I keep the news pulled up on my other screen while we're chatting to catch anything that's breaking. So the Biden campaign has sent a memo to Democratic leadership stating that the president is staying in the race. He is not dropping out of the race.
He's going to take it. Somebody, I can't remember who I was listening to, but if you're Joe Biden, right, he must be somewhat with it. Somewhat. Just think how angry he is that everyone is turning their backs on him. He's got to be pretty upset. I don't think it's too late to bribe him. I don't think it's too late for them to bribe him out of it.
Well, let's talk about the fallout from all this. Because, one, I think we all saw, and I didn't see it real time. I was traveling. But, once I saw the photo with Trump coming out and you got the fight, and the blood on his face and the American flag, it's like, dude, again, this thing is over. It is over, right? And then, before that, you had, Biden's disastrous debate. And so now you've got all this calling. I think it's up to 30 House members, Democrats, last I checked, maybe 31 by now, that are calling for Biden to step down. You got you've got a handful of senators that are calling for him to step down. And so what's your guys' take? And we can start with you, Josh. Is Biden going to stay in the race? Is he staying into the election day? Or what's your thought on that?
If you would have asked me last Friday, I would have said yes. Today, I don't know. I think that his own hubris is going to keep him in, and I think the pressure from the family is going to keep him in. I do not see Biden willingly stepping down. I don't see it.
We're definitely not willingly. I think he's just a stubborn old bastard that's like, hell no, I ain't going anywhere, right?
Yeah. I don't think he's gonna willingly step down. I really don't. Barring any like just mega sweetheart deal. Because again, at the end of the day, man, he loves his son. He loves Hunter, and he knows that he is the only person that is going to be able to keep Hunter out of jail with a presidential pardon.
I'm so on the fence.
What about you,
I'm
Luke?
so on the fence. Daily, I kind of like, well, it's too. I'm with Josh. It's like, man, 2 days ago I was like, oh, and real quick, props to Josh because he called JD Vance last time we recorded. I was neither hot nor cold, and God spewed me out of his. I didn't make a call. I was like, I just don't know. So I'm sitting here. I was thinking about that, and I was like, man, I got to make a call on this one. Okay, how about this? Let's do it this way. By the time we record next time, and Josh, you could change your answer. By the time we record, will Joe Biden still record next time? Will Joe Biden still be in the race? I'm gonna say yes because I'm gonna say he'll be in next week because the convention's not till August. Got some time. So by the end of next week, so that would be toward the end of July, he'll still be in the race. But to answer your question, Roger, after hearing what I just heard earlier, some news and what Josh just said, right now, overall, I'm going to say the odds are he will stay in the race, but he will definitely 100% still be in the race by next week, Saturday, 27th.
Yeah, I can buy that. And I think, and I haven't heard it talked about a lot. It's just a couple folks that are into campaign finance. There are bigger issues. There's bigger challenges. I mean, one we've always talked about, there's the Kamala challenge, right? Like, what do you do? Like, if you take Joe out, is Kamala really your answer? I mean, I think we all kind of know, and Democrats realize that Kamala is not the answer. I think a couple months ago, they thought Newsom might be the answer, but, I could be putting too much weight into this. I think his debate with RDS put him out of the running for this year. I think it was just like, yeah, that dude's not the answer. But above that, I think you run into a lot of campaign finance laws. And dude, I don't know anything. I barely know anything about campaign finance laws, but the way I understand it and the way I've heard it from the pundits is that really the only person who has access to all those funds is Kamala Harris because of the ticket. And if you pull her away from it, like he can't just give that money to whoever the Democrat nominee is going to be. So that might have a bigger role to play. But I mean, there's other challenges as well, right? Like I think he'll be in the race by the time we record next. But you get to a point where timing becomes an issue because you may not make it on ballots in certain states. We talked about before where, Ohio is going to pass a waiver to allow him on the ballot before the convention or after the convention or whatever because of their time frame. But the longer you wait, the more and more other states come into play. And you can legit, and I don't have the time frame off the top of my head, but you could legit have 4, 5, 6 states that you just don't make it on the ballot because of time. Right now, again, we talked about polling and this and that. And it's like, okay, it still comes down to Georgia and Pennsylvania. And then if you lose Pennsylvania or you lose Georgia, and it looks like he's going to probably, Trump will probably win Georgia. If he loses Pennsylvania, it brings in the Nevadas and the Michigans and the Wisconsins and the Arizonas and several other states. Even Virginia now is in play, according to some of the polling. But I think when you look at getting somebody else to be the nominee and making it on that ballot, you may make it where it's actually just unwinnable by a Democrat. The longer you go, I think the more of a chance, if it's not Joe, it just becomes unwinnable because you may not be on the ballots in 5 or 6 states. And then if you start opening up 5, 6, 7 paths to victory for Trump, you're probably going to lose, especially with all the momentum that he's got, behind him right now. The other problem that you're having, I think if you're a Democrat, you look at and you say, man, who really wants to run against Donald Trump right now? Now before the assassination attempt, I think you had a handful, right? Yeah, man, I'll do this thing. But with all the momentum that he's got going on right now, and all the fundraising, because I haven't even heard fundraising numbers, but I got to imagine donations are just through the roof since the assassination attempt. But if you're a Democrat and you actually have aspirations of being the president or holding that type of office, like who in their right mind wants to run against, Trump right now. I mean, there's just no way. So I think, I said from the beginning, several episodes that I never thought Biden would make it to the election. I still believe that doesn't happen. I think the best bet that the Democrats have right now is that, hey, man, you throw Kamala out there. She's your nominee. If she wins, the Democrats, you just won a lottery ticket. You just won the lottery and you roll with it. But if she loses, you've solved your 2028 Kamala problem. But at the same time, man, it's like we were chatting earlier, never look at Barry. Barry never endorsed Joe to begin with, right? What did he do? He said, hey, go to the open convention and whatever happens. Delegates will make their decision, and that's who we roll with. So I do. So all of that to say, I do agree with you, Luke. I think he's in it for at least another week. I think there's a lot to play in there. I think the Hunter thing comes up that Josh mentioned. I think you got the campaign finance stuff that comes in, and COVID would have been the right time to pull him out, right? That with what he's got going on right now from the GOP side, if you're Trump, you need Biden to stay in the race. That's the reality of it. You need Biden to stay in the race. And it's not that Trump can't beat anybody else, but there is a honeymoon period that everybody has, all candidates have. And if you bring a new nominee in, there's just not enough time for the dirt and the media to catch up with all this stuff. Because like right now, dude, you bring in a Democrat nominee, there's going to be, okay, flood of cash coming in, right? Donors are going to, hey, we got to make up time. There's going to be a flood of cash coming in. Donors, look how great this person is. And it takes 4, 5, 6 months for that stuff to settle down and really get into the weeds of that stuff. So I think if you're a Democrat, you go with Kamala. And if you're Donald Trump, I think you need to continue to goad Biden and you pick at his manhood to keep that dude in the race.
Yeah, if I'm the Trump campaign, I'm goading Biden to stay in. Absolutely, all day long. So there's 3 ways that this ends. That Biden that Biden can bow out. And I listened to some Shapiro on it, and he broke it down. He broke it down really well. All right, so the first scenario, Biden steps down as a candidate, but he stays as president. All right, which I don't know how they justify that, because if you're not fit to be candidate, then you're not fit to be the current president. If you're not fit to run for the office, you probably shouldn't be holding the office. But there's no way for him to, and Shapiro broke down the legal piece of this too. There's the campaign funds. You were right. There's no way that those campaign funds are the Biden-Harris campaign fund. They cannot give those funds to another candidate. So that war chest, and Luke even, spoke to this in the last episode, that war chest can't go to, some other random individual. And then you have the delegates, right? So there's 4,000 DNC delegates, 3,900, of them have already committed to Biden because of the primary. Okay. I mean, the Democrats have already had their primary. They chose Biden as their horse. And so the delegates right now under the 1980 faithful delegate rule that the DNC put in. All right. And this was to keep the, delegates, basically, they stay with Jimmy Carter. So that you got that, and that kind of, then you have the conscience clause. Now the conscience clause in there does say the delegates, they don't have to, they can vote their conscience if necessary, and certain circumstances. But then you got to deal with the optics. Biden stepping down as a candidate. Kamala going in, like you said. There's a lot of turbulence in that. Kamala is not. The polling's not there for her. Right. The polling's not there for her. Then you got to deal with, okay, so you don't go with Kamala. Who do you go with? And then how do you manage that as well? That, hey, we're not going with the vice president. We're going to just pick, somebody else, and then Biden steps down as both the candidate and as POTUS. That's a less likely, situation. Harris, based on the 25th Amendment, Harris immediately becomes president. That's, same thing as Nixon in 74 when, he he resigned. But then you've got to deal again. You got to deal with Kamala, establishing her credibility. Same thing as the first scenario. Everything it's not good. And then heaven forbid, Biden passes away. That 25th Amendment kicks in. Right then. Same thing with Kennedy going over to LBJ and everything. But their biggest problem. Well, I say their two biggest problems, like you said, are donations. Because it just that you give all that money, it's not automatically on their credit cards and they get to go use it right then. That's a process, even after it's donated. And so you've got the donation and then you've got time. So Ohio, that was an August 7th deadline that DeWine had to have a special session, and they're nominating Joe or whoever virtually before their convention to meet that deadline. So it's they've got they got other states to contend with too. So they've got they have a real problem. They painted themselves into a corner by picking by Joe picking Kamala as his running mate. They did it to themselves. So
yeah, man,
we'll see what happens. They don't have a good answer.
Yeah, they're in a pickle. They're in a pickle of their own making. We talked about that, and I think of the 3-hour 45 one, or maybe last time. I don't know, but yeah, they're in a tough spot, man. I still hold by my thing. It's like, you know what? Just cut your losses, and plan for 2028 and the next 20 years after that. Because guys, we have a far deeper bench than the Democrats. Everybody's like, oh, the Democrats have a deep
100%.
bench.
Watch
the freaking convention. I mean, Roger brought up Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Holy cow, I'd vote for her in a second. I'd vote for a lot of those people in a second. I mean, it's just, man, we got a deep bench. And now get real used to J.D. Vance, Get J.D. Vance, Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy. I don't like Nikki Haley, but she's on the bench. Sarah Huckabee, all these people, man, it's just a deep, deep bench. So I know we're coming up close to time. Roger's like tapping his watch. He's like, you only going 3 hours, 45 minutes on this one. I want to say one more thing about the would-be assassin, Thomas Matthew Crooks. I was making fun of him and everything, but think about this. The guy was bullied. I think everybody agrees with that. He was a goofy-looking kid. Keep this in mind. That kid was locked down out of school from age 16 to 18 because of COVID. All he had was himself and the internet. Think about that. It's like, is that the reason he did it? No, but it was a contributing factor. I'll say that right now. That was a contributing factor. Those unintended consequences we talked about 4 years ago are coming up on 4 years when we started this podcast. So it's like, that's the kind of stuff. You think outside the box, it's like, well, he was bullied. Okay. Oh, he was also 16 when he was locked down. It's part of it. It's something to think about. That's all I got to say for tonight. Pass it to Roger.
Yeah, real quick. One, it's good to be back. I know I missed a couple episodes, and yeah, dude, my mind was blown when I saw 3 hours and 46 minutes. I thought you guys were joking. So I had really, really spotty connectivity, and a lot of times I didn't have internet service or cell service. So I would just get these blow ups on my phone all at once when I came within cell range. And I think I saw something with Luke, and talking about I'm going to lose my mind, and I was like, okay, I thought he was joking. And then when I got to a spot where I could actually pull up the podcast, I was like, oh my Lord, that is insane. So I don't know if both your wives were just out for the night on date night with their boyfriends or whatever, but that's pretty incredible. But real quick shout out to one of our listeners, Spence. He had an accident with some fireworks, and it was pretty devastating, man. It's pretty gnarly. So I won't go into all the details with it, but hopefully, well, one, I guess now he's got plenty of time during his rehab and recovery to listen to that 3 hour and 46-minute episode. And hopefully you recover very quickly, and just letting you know that, thoughts and prayers go out to you and your family.
Yeah. Hope Spence makes a speedy recovery on that. I will say one last thing, and then I'll close it out for us. So I've been black pill for a long time, and I haven't been high on the election this year. I haven't been high on Trump. Man, I was a DeSantis supporter, until the primary. Then, Trump's the guy. And like Roger said, it's binary at this point. So, I was going to vote for Trump. And then last Saturday happened. I was gonna go to the poll. I was gonna vote for Trump. I was just, even after I said I probably wasn't gonna vote, I was just like, all right, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna hold my nose and I'm gonna do it. And then last Saturday happened, and when he came up out of that body pile, blood on his face, pumping his fists in the air, saying fight, I had the same feeling that I had when I saw Rocky the first time as a kid. It sounds cheesy and it sounds ridiculous, but you got the flags flying above him, like he's got his fist in the air and he's like fight. Like, I can't wait. I'm fired up. I can't wait till November to go vote for that dude. Like, I cannot wait to go vote for him. So that's all I'll say. Close it out. Again, we really appreciate folks. We really appreciate your time, especially when you listen to the 3 hours and 45 minutes one. Again, at the end of the day, go watch some of those speeches from the RNC, please. Even if you don't, listen to some of those speeches. Listen to the 98-year-old World War II vet, give his speech. Listen to Tucker Carlson. Listen to Amber Rose. Listen to these folks, these everyday Americans. Listen to the Gold Star, video that they played from the Gold Star families from Abbey Gate in Afghanistan in 2021. Like, listen to that stuff, because if that doesn't move you, then I don't know what will. All right, so everybody be good to each other, and we will catch you next time on the next episode of The Cup. And until then, go get those Canteen cups filled up with a bunch of stuff and let those little cup of maniacs run wild, brother.